Hello and welcome. My name is Avalon Starlight of the Empath Healer, and today I want to talk to you about the top 5 books. If you are discovering that you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, these were the 5 books that impacted me, and the 5th one might surprise you. So we're going to get started right away. So I was 34 years old when I recognized that I was an empath. I didn't know what the word meant. Prior to that, I didn't know what I was experiencing. I would go out and get groceries. I would come home. I'd have to lay on the couch. My groceries sat on the counter. I couldn't be in large crowds unless I had been drinking. I was just kind of feeling fatigued and overwhelmed. So the first thing that I learned was that I was an empath. Shortly after that, I picked up this book, The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron. She is known as the grandmother of the highly sensitive person because she coined the term. So this is the first research-based book that I came in contact with that began to kind of give me the information that I needed about what was happening in my brain. It talked about overstimulation, so the fact that we have depths of processing as a highly sensitive person. So when we walk into rooms, we can see everything. We're reading, what people's facial expressions are. We feel the intensity of the light, sometimes electricity, all these things are happening. And so this book was the first time I felt myself mirrored back to me. And it was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. I was like, holy shiesball, I am a highly sensitive person. And this was a book that made me feel like I was seen for the very first time. And I mean, this book was birthed, written, published in 1996. So it is something that is really significant. It's only been around for 30 years. And so even the information that we're getting about being a highly sensitive person is fairly new. So, when you kind of learn that you're a highly sensitive person, it's okay that people don't understand it. It's okay that, there's not a lot of research or information because it's still a baby. But it is proven. This book was the way that I came in contact with that proof. There's lots of brain information and also research-based information in this. So it's a fabulous, fabulous book to read. I always say start there. The next book that I read that I was like, okay, that's amazing. I see myself, was this one, The Empath Survival Guide by Judith Orloff. Let me just tell you about this book. What I liked about this book particularly is, Judith is an extreme empath. I am very empathic, and to me, an empath has a thin boundary, which we'll talk about in the 4th book, that allows us to perceive information that other people can't. So if you think of energy just as waves of information, when we have thin boundaries, we can receive the transmission of these waves easier than other people. And depending on what dial we are tuned to, it will depend on what energy or information that we can pick up. Now, in this book, I learned about what an energy vampire is, somebody who can take our precious energy if we're not protecting it. I learned, how Judith actually takes care of herself, how she manages her energy. And one of my favorite conversations in this book that really stands out for me is it talked about the type of people or relationships that empaths can be in. And when I recognized myself in my husband, honestly, it was like I felt a breath go through my body that she explained the dynamic of my relationship with my partner and why I require certain things in my relationship that maybe, isn't quite how other relationships work. And so this was really potent. I do recommend it because it does give you a lot of, the basic, these are the things you need to do in order to make sure that you are protected in a world that doesn't know how to protect you. So that one was really fabulous, busting through these. 3rd book that I recommend. So recently, probably about a few years ago, I started following, and I'll put their email in the comments below so that you can follow them if you feel called to do so, this email, and it was called Highly Sensitive Refuge. And so every Friday you get this email that has a blog or information based on the traits of being a sensitive person, how to navigate being in a work environment, relationships, going out, why we're so sensitive. Like, it has just a plethora of information at all times. So the authors of that, the people who house that, are very, very connected to Aron, who is the grandmother of being a coined highly sensitive person. And so they actually wrote their own book. And so this is Sensitive by Jen Granneman and Andre Solo. And so this is a more updated, recent, research-based book about the brain and being a highly sensitive person, how that impacts us, how that influences experiences you might have in your day-to-day living, how it impacts your parenting, how it impacts your work environment. And so it's a really powerful way to, again, understand the brain chemistry of why you experience the world through the perspective and the lens that you do. So this just feels like an updated version of The Highly Sensitive Person by Aron, but I love this book. Like, I thought it was really potent, really powerful, and really significant. So I'm going to move into the fourth book. The fourth book I really enjoyed because it talked about things that the other books didn't talk about, like being a savant, synesthesia, what it means to be a thick-boundaried versus a thin-boundaried person, and how we might experience it based on research of different types of research-based information. And so it gave a little bit more breadth to different forms of sensitivity. Also talked about whether it was genetic or something we picked up through trauma, and kind of proved that it's a little bit of both. And so this book is Sensitive Soul by Michael Jawer. I really appreciate it. I've read it twice. I found it significant in the sense that it allowed me to perceive all the ways and the forms that we are initiated, brought forth, like how we come into existence and why we exist in the first place. And I just found it a really potent way to just see the absolute different possibilities of how sensitivity influences different people, from how it could be sparked by PTSD, how it could be brought forward in near-death experiences, and why being thin-boundary just means that we receive information that thick-boundaried people don't have access to. And if I were to go a little quantum on you, which sometimes I like to do, there is something called quantum entanglement. We all are connected to the same source. And if you think of everything as a field of possibility, a thin-boundaried person has access to that level of information, right? So we can perceive things that other people cannot. I really enjoy, and maybe I'll make another video about the telepathy tapes and Mayim by Alik's breakdown, because they're normalizing extrasensory perception. And this book talks a lot about that. And so it's again having these conversations that we're just experiencing, being able to tap into waves of energy that other people can't. Which brings me to my fifth book, which I said was going to be a little bit of a surprise because I wrote it. So if you are on the sensitivity scale or the empathic scale, and I think of it as a scale or a spectrum, right? You may just notice the depth of processing, so you get a little overstimulated and you need to spend some time alone and you feel great. Or you could have a more intense experience of your sensitivity and your experience of feeling other people's emotions or animals or the ground beneath you or all sorts of things. Now, I fall pretty high on the sensitivity scale, so certain lights are not appropriate for me. If it's too loud, I was a personal trainer for a decade, and like the TVs and the white light and all that noise of the machines clanking, thank God for loop earplugs. And if ever I was to have somebody say, would you like to be like a part of our company and promote us in your thing, it would be loop earplugs. Anyway, separate story. So I wrote a book because I can't actually work for other people. Like, I am sensitive enough that I need to control my environment, the texture of my clothing, when I need to tinkle, all the things. And so when I launched into being an entrepreneur, which happened over a decade ago, there's not a lot of information that speaks directly to the sensitive soul on how we build a business, because it's really loud and chaotic and noisy out there. And the best information I could ever give you is like, you're going to come in contact with the person who's going to say that they do the right thing for you at the right time, is to never make decisions while you're in a room of other people. Like, you go to a little like workshop and then they're going to say, oh, you should join this thing or do this thing. When you're around that much energy and influence and like heightened emotion, you're going to automatically tap into that as an empath and highly sensitive person. And so I always say, leave the room or get off the phone, get yourself organized, and then make decisions. But one of the biggest things that I learned about being an entrepreneur for the last decade is that we already have every answer. Like, all my best business decisions, they came from inside me. So I actually wrote a business book specifically for empaths and highly sensitive people. It's called The Magical Business Method, an empath's guide to building a business from the inside out. The biggest thing we have to counteract as an empath to build a business that pays for our basic bills, brings our dreams to life, like allows us to do something that we love, that helps the people. Because if you're an empath, man, helping people is kind of like, I can't control it, I have to do it. Is that we have to learn that we are the business that we are promoting and we're putting out. So this book was great because, you talk like it's not in the third person. This book's great because it really talks about how you are the office, and so how you're communicating with yourself inside really deems how other people, when they come and contact you, are going to be impressed upon by your energy. So if you talk negatively to yourself, it's like the CEO speaking badly to their employees. And so you want to learn how to manage your internal energy, become really, really adept at listening to your intuition, because that is our superpower as an empath, which is what this book is also all about. And it really gives you a step-by-step guide in being able to plant the seeds and nourish them and nurture them and watch them grow into something that feels really, really, really amazing to do for you as a life-giving business for yourself. So these are the 5 books that I would recommend for every empath and highly sensitive person. Now, I get that they're not the be-all, end-all of every book that ever was written for highly sensitive persons and empaths. Because I love reading, if you have read a book that I did not list here that you're like, oh, Avalon, this should be on the list, please put them in the comments below. If there is one that you have read here and you're like, oh, I love that book, let me know, right? Like, I want to hear your experiences of the books that you're reading. And if you do read mine, which I hope you do, let me know how you enjoyed it. Because again, I'm writing 2 more in the series for us empaths and highly sensitive people. So your feedback and your information is vital to me being able to support you guys to the best of my ability. So thank you for tuning in. I look forward to your comments, and I have a plethora of information on this channel to support you as an empath and highly sensitive person. So peruse around, like, share, do all of those juicy things, and I look forward to sharing another video with you soon.